Welcome to Up All Night DIY. I'm Monica. Thanks for joining me. Today I'm co-hosting the These Are a Few of Our Favorite Things collaboration with one of my favorite people, Dawn of Shappy Meets Bling. We're joined by lots of our talented friends, and we're going to bring you some of our favorite things about the holiday and winter season. You'll find links to Dawn's channel and the playlist in the description box. One of my favorite things about this time of year are snowmen, and I love the idea of them having a snowball fight, so that's what we're going to be making today. Let's get into it. We're going to be using some Daz air dry clay, 5 3.1 inch foam balls, I got mine at the Dollar Tree, 3-in-1 glue, and toothpicks, as well as some other bits and bobs. So here I'm showing you how to create flat spots on the top and bottom of the balls by pressing down on the top of the jar lid. Please note that these balls are not the balls I wind up using to create the snowman. Originally, I was going to use these larger balls, and then I decided to go with the smaller 1.3 inch balls. But it's the same process. They're going to stack on top of each other, like so. I also cut one of the 5 balls in half and created a flat spot on the rounded end. We are going to break a toothpick in half and use it to anchor the half ball onto one of the whole balls. I'll use 3-in-1 glue between the 2 balls, to help them stick together. We're going to be making 2 snowmen today, because it wouldn't be much of a snowball fight if it was just one guy, Giggles and Gus. And we're going to repeat the process for each snowman. So for the most part, everything you see me do to one is the exact same thing that I'm going to do to the other. I'm only going to show it to you once though. You feel me? I'll cut me off a slab of clay. You can use whatever clay you prefer. The steps are basically the same regardless. And I'll squish it and knead it to condition it. This is going to help distribute the moisture. I'm going to take a wee bit of the clay and roll it into a cane. We're going to use this to fill the gap between the 2 foam pieces that we just glued together. That's going to be the snowman's bodies. So I'm going to wrap this around that gap, and I'm going to use my fingers to push it into place and flatten it a wee bit. And then we're going to roll it on the table to help smooth it out a wee bit. I roll out more clay, nice and flat. And I'll cut it to size to fit my styrofoam structure. And we are going to wrap it around the side of the foam, pressing to ensure that it has good contact. I'll fill in any gaps with the spare clay until the foam is completely covered. I lightly dampen my clay with my paintbrush, and I'm going to use my fingers to continue to smooth it. I don't mind some bumps, since this is a snowman, he can be a wee bit bumpy, but for the most part, we want it to be relatively smooth. You know what I'm saying? The next thing I want to do is to create their legs. I'll roll a thicker cane of clay, narrowing both ends, and I do this just by applying a little more pressure to the ends as I roll it out. I'll cut the cane in half, creating 2 legs, and of course we're going to repeat this, for the other snowmen as well. Since our snowmen are going to be in a throwing stance, we're going to want to position their legs far apart. So I'm going to break a toothpick in half and push one half into one side of the body to anchor his leg. And I'll position the one leg over the toothpick so that it's sticking straight out to the side. Using my pointy clay tool to incorporate the 2 pieces, and I'll do this by spreading the clay from the leg onto the clay of the body. This clay is very easy to manipulate in this way. It's like spreading peanut butter, really. It's very easy to do. We just want to get rid of that seam there. I use my finger to create a small bend. It's more or less a flat spot on the top to create his foot. I want to make sure that his foot is flat on the table. And we're going to repeat the same process to attach the other leg. There we go. And we just want to make sure that it'll be able to stand up straight on its own. See? To create their heads, I rolled out more clay, cut it to size, and wrapped it around the foam ball. And just like before, we're going to fill in any bare spots with some of our flattened clay. I'm going to dampen the clay lightly with my paintbrush here because it's starting to dry, and I'll use my pointy tool to smooth it out. And I'm also going to use my fingers to get the smoothest surface possible. I push a toothpick into the center of the body to anchor the head, and then I'll center the head on the toothpick. I roll another thin cane of clay to fill the gap between the head and the body. We're going to wrap it right around that space. We'll cut off any excess, and then I'll use one of my ball tools to flatten out the clay. This is going to not only secure the head to the body, but also make it look like he's all one piece. And one more time, I'm going to use my pointy tool to spread out that clay and smooth it. I rolled a wee ball of clay and cut it in half, and this will be his cheeks. I position the first cheek, dampening it slightly and incorporating it with my pointy tool. I place the second cheek slightly lower than the first on an angle. This will give the impression that his head is ever so slightly tilted. And I'll add some dimples by using the end of my tool and pushing it up into the underside of his cheek, creating a divot. I've rolled another wee ball, which I'm going to plunk in between his two cheeks as his nose. And once again, we're going to incorporate it just like before. I've rolled yet another cane of clay, which I'm going to slightly flatten with my roller to create Gus's scarf. Now, up to this point, both of our snowmen are exactly the same structurally, except Gus here, he's going to get a scarf and a top hat. However, Giggle, he gets a stocking cap, which I made by rolling a cone of clay. Anyway, I'm going to cut off the ends to make them more uniform, and let's squish this down a wee smidge so that it's not so wide and is a little wavy. We'll wrap it around his neck, adding a wee crease in the middle so that it looks like it's slouching, like a scarf would. I'm going to cut off the excess, and I'm going to squeeze the tails together like this, and then I'm going to pinch them so that it gives the impression that the tails are tied. Now for the arms, once again I rolled a thicker cane of clay. I'm going to cut that in half, giving me 2 arms. I've already added a toothpick in the area where I want to anchor the arm, but I want to shorten these arms just a wee bit, so I'll lop a piece off. Yeah, that's much better. I'll push the end of the arm onto the toothpick, and I'll incorporate it in the back and along the bottom side of the arm, where it meets the body. We'll add the other arm and incorporate it. We're going to incorporate it right where the arm meets the body. This arm is going to be extended, so it's really just around the shoulder. Just spreading, just like before. I'll use one of my ball tools to make an impression in his right hand. This will be his throwing hand, so I want to make an impression so he can hold a snowball. I cut another small clay ball in half to create his thumbs. And now I'm going to attach them to his hands. I'm just pushing them into place and incorporating them with my pointy tool. No toothpick is necessary. One final touch for Gus will be his top hat. So I've rolled a small marshmallow shape for his stovepipe top, the top part of his hat, and I'm going to cut a circle from some flattened clay with my fondant cutter. I push another toothpick into the top of his head, then I'm going to add the circle on top of that, and then the stovepipe part of the hat on top of the brim, anchored by the toothpick. And I'm going to incorporate the top of his hat with his brim. Okay, we can set these guys aside to dry overnight. Gus is in the top hat and Giggle is in the stocking cap. And like I said, I just rolled a cone of clay, plunked it on Giggle's head. I turned down the very top and added a border around his face to give it a little bit of a brim. I also rolled 2 snowballs, one for Gus's hands and one that's going to lie in front of Giggle. Both snowmen will get 2 coats of Ceramcoat White paint. And both snowballs will also get a double coat of white. After I apply the second coat of white to the snowballs, I'm going to dip them into some diamond dust glitter to give them that glittery, glistening, snowy look. Giggle's stocking cap and his mittens will get 2 coats of Ceramcoat Watermelon. You guys know watermelon is my favorite color for red, especially during the holidays. The trim around Giggle's hat is going to get parsley stripes. I'm not being too fussy here. You know what, let's also give him a parsley stripe right there along the edge, the cuff of his mitten. Yeah, that looks good. I'm also going to go back later and add festive green stripes in between the parsley stripes on Giggle's hat. Now let's work on Gus's scarf, which is going to get a double coat of watermelon, and his mittens will also get a double coat, but of parsley. And let's give his scarf white stripes and parsley stripes in between. Let's embellish his mittens with a snowflake while we're at it, and I'm also going to add a watermelon trim around the cuff here. Two coats of Hippo gray for Gus's top hat. I'm coming in here with Tropic Bay Blue to sketch in their eyes and their mouths. We're going to come back later and darken them a wee bit. I'll give our guys a dry brush of Tropic Bay. I'm starting on the cheeks and nose, and then I'm just going to do all of his snowy bits. This is going to add a nice frosty look to him. And I'm just doing this, anywhere where I think it needs it. We'll get Gus all frosted up. Now I'm going to grab my Folk Art Floating Medium and do some shading. I prep my brush here with the medium, this clear gel, working it into the bristles. I scoop up some Americana cherry onto the corner of my brush Side loading. I'm going to stroke my brush on my plate to blend the medium with the paint, and it's going to create a fade from dark at the corner to light as it moves toward the middle of the brush. I place the paint corner of my brush where I want my darkest shadow, right here where the tails meet his scarf, and I'll float in the shading. I'm going to reload as needed, and I'll go right along, where his head meets the scarf and where his body meets the scarf, etc. Basically, I'm just outlining the scarf with the shading. I also want to go where that little slouchy bit is in the middle of the scarf, because there would be a shadow there. Onto Giggle's hat and mittens, just right along the edge where the brim meets the hat. And we're just going to float a little bit here where it meets the trim of his mitten. We're going to shade Gus's mittens with Americana Festive Green. Just going to float right in there. I also decided to float the trim of Giggle's hat with Tropic Bay. It really needed a little more definition. Now, I did shade Gus's top hat. I did that with charcoal. I don't know what happened. I guess I didn't turn on the camera, but I just basically did the same thing, just anywhere I thought there would be a shadow. Right, so now with Hippo Gray, I'll go over their features. Arched eyes for Gus, and I'm going to dot in his pupils. And I'll get wee strokes for eyebrows too, just wherever I can fit them in. I'll get a cheeky wee smile. Giggles is getting squinty eyes. He took a snowball right to the face. I'll also get wee stroke eyebrows. And a jolly smile. I felt like his hat was too plain, so I'm going to add some white dots, and I'll come back in and add some green dots too. I'll dot their cheeks and their nose with some watermelon and shake on some red glitter. Boop. We're going to need some snow text, which is just like a gritty paste that looks like snow. I'm going to dab some on Giggle's face right here by his eye, and I'm going to sprinkle on some of that diamond dust. And now some for Gus's hat. He got hit in the head with the snowball. And we'll shake on some diamond dust for this too. Now I'm going to go ahead and pounce on a top coat of Deco Art multi-purpose sealer using a cosmetic sponge. I found a wee piece of pipe cleaner here. It's red and green twisted together. I'm going to attach this to Gus's hat as a hat band using 3-in-1 glue. And finally, I'll use that 3-in-1 glue to attach his snowball. And Gus and Giggle are ready for a snowball fight. Shall we take a look? Aw, how cute are these two guys, having so much fun out there in the snow, smacking each other in the head and in the face with snowballs. You got Gus there side-eyeing, and you got poor old Giggle squinting, but you know what? They're both having a lot of fun. That's what counts. I hope you liked today's projects. I really had so much fun making these two guys. I love to make snowmen, and I love the idea of them just doing something that we would do in everyday life. Let me know what you think. I want to thank my co-host, the fabulous Dawn of Shabby Meets Bling. You're going to find a link to her channel as well as a link to the playlist in the description box. Head on over, watch everybody's videos, show them some love. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and all that good stuff. Stay creative, my friends. Thanks for hanging with me. See you next time. Up all night with Monica.